prompted you to particularly focus on like the role of spouses and their perspective on the family enterprise?
This book has been growing probably over the last 12 years or so because when I have conversations either about family business ownership or about the day-to-day running of the business, I kept hearing things like, well, we know that employing all of our kids in the business or every single niece and nephew is maybe not the right choice for the business. I've been told by mom or grandpa or my wife or my husband that I have to.
Mhm.
And that has been so frustrating to me. And I've thought over and over, like, where are they getting that information? Why are they doing that? What's going on? And so I started digging into it. And I found two things. One is the spouses who are making those recommendations or requirements are not going anywhere for that, meaning they're not going to research, they're not going to books about family business. And then I realized the reason they're not doing that is there's no book for them, there is no resource for them. And as I started researching, the only thing I found in the literature was how to divorce them. So since I couldn't find anything else, I decided I needed to write something down to hopefully help the business owners, but in particular to help the spouse and help them have information that could be valuable.
Tell us a little bit more, Sarah, about like what do you see as being the main factors complicating a spouse's position with regards to the family business?
What I've seen, it's hard to even recognize how complicated your own role is, much less the role of your spouse, right? So of course their role is coming after you even being able to put your own head around it. So, woof, that is one for sure. The other thing that I think is complicating things is I think out of good intentions, a lot of family business owners want to insulate their spouse from things.
What are things that a spouse can proactively do in order to promote a healthy relationship with the family enterprise?
I think the number one thing is to, of course, hear your partner, right? Hear what they're saying, do active listening, right?
Yeah.
When it comes time to ask questions, to dig in, instead of getting to, well, here's the thing to do, which is what a lot of spouses just naturally do, right? Where I'm on your team, let's make a plan, let's get things done. And that's what my book is all about is to help the spouse understand, wow, are we trying to run this business in a way that is really how the family should be run? Like when you
Mhm.
think about the idea of every kid or every niece or every nephew gets a job, that's really the way a family should run. Every kid, every niece, every nephew, every grandkid should have a seat in the family. That's a healthy way to run a family, not a healthy way to run the business. So,
Mhm.
a great spouse, hopefully, with this really short book, will be able to say, oh, I think we're trying to put the rules of engagement for the family on the business.
What can a enterprise owning or wealth owning family do to make sure the in-law and the spouse has a chance to even start to understand how this works and how they can be a positive force to make things better?
To have the spouses understand the system, meaning that there's a family, that there's a business, that there's ownership. If you can equip the spouse or spouses with that idea of like, this is what a healthy situation looks like, they can ideally then act in a healthy way and help their spouse act in a healthy way and help their kids act in a healthy
Mhm.
way. And from there, if you want to start sharing financial documents, wills, the words on everything, the bylaws, the buy sell, etc., great. But before that, they're just taking in either no information or a whole bunch of information that's hard to make sense of.
What happens to the identity of the spouse? And what happens to that identity in relation to raising the next generation?
I think it's extraordinarily important for the spouse to decide what their involvement is that they want. So often they just get told, this is your role. Welcome to the family.
Yeah.
Please sign a prenup. We'd love to have you at the holidays. Keep quiet.
Mm.
Or thank you for the child. We're glad they're here. They're going to get their name on some documents. You will not, right?
Mm.
That's tough. So to me, for a spouse to understand the system, to understand that there's a family, there's a business, there's ownership, and then to understand Where do I fit? Where should I fit? Where should I not fit? But then beyond that, where do I want to fit? Well,
Mm-hmm.
where are my skills helpful? Where are they not helpful? That I think is one of the most powerful things any spouse can do and any owner can ask their spouse to do is to really get clear about how involved do you want to be and how involved do you
Mm.
not want to be.
How do you work on strengthening as a spouse your relationship with your husband, your wife, who is part of a family business? What are ingredients for a successful couple in that context, do you think?
I think, well, and this is how you started our conversation today. The why is huge. A spouse needs to understand their why and why do I want to be involved and what am I willing to do? But understanding, if you're the spouse of a family business owner, understanding your family business owner spouse's why and really trying to dig in, what is the vision for the business? What are you trying to accomplish? And then to be able to debate it, right? So, is
Mm-hmm.
it a call at dinner every night for 27 years as the spouse? Are you okay with that? If you're okay with it, then you're okay with it. If you're not, how can you, as a partnership, figure out what are the times of day that there are no phone calls that happen and put
Mm-hmm.
some boundaries around it, right? And I'm saying that like it's easy. I know it's not, but figure out what are you trying to accomplish? What is that spouse trying to accomplish? What are you excited about? What are you not? Make a plan around it. And again, a whole podcast about boundaries, right? Figure out, make an agreement, and then do your best to stick to it.
I do have a question about like sort of like who the audience is that you're hoping for with your book. Who are you hoping for in terms of a reader base?
So, of course, I wrote the book thinking this is just for the spouses, this is for them. I did imagine, because of course I know more of the business owners. So, who I thought would buy it would be the owners, right? The owner will buy it for their spouse. What I've found in the last couple of months is it's true, it's the owners who buy it. But I've had three people say to me, Sarah, I couldn't help it. I read the book before I gave it to my spouse. And I want another copy, and we're going to read it together.
Mm-hmm.
That was not my vision. I don't think that's a requirement. If that never happens, it's not a failure. But three people in the last couple of weeks have said,
I
I
found
want
it a
another copy.
helpful
Yeah.
base
Yeah.
of
So now I kind of wish
communication.
I would have written it for the couple. But in a way, I think it kind of is. It's written for the
Well,
spouse.
and so what's the role of those parents in law that have no idea how to deal with that kind of dynamic?
I actually disagree in some ways with the
Mhm.
premise of your question. And the
Okay.
reason I say this is this. For sure, I agree with the idea that often in the founding situation, it's a couple and they signed the papers together and right, they took the risk together, they made the decision together. What I see over and over with the founding generation is if we think about the three circle model of family business, the family, the business, and ownership, it's just been one big blob. Right.
Mhm.
We're running, we're trying to, the kids are in the office and they're sweeping and we're eating dinner at my desk. And right, it's all just one big blob. And so, even though there are those three things happening, they don't think of it that way at all. They would benefit from doing it, but they don't have to, right? That kind of thing. But here's the thing that often that founding generation does not pay attention to, which is in the family circle, there's a really important leader in that circle, and it's the chief emotional officer. And often one person is playing that role. They are the one making sure the family gets together and there is vacation time. And we're not talking about the business or taking the calls at
Mhm.
dinner or breakfast or whatever meal it is, or it's only on Sundays that we don't do that. They've been playing a role there. And it's really helpful for the founding generation to understand that role and its huge role in keeping the business going and keeping the family going. And when they can start to wrap their head around that, they can see the increased value of having a strong family circle there. And that often will change their viewpoint on the role of these incoming spouses.
Mhm.
And I like to say this, and I get this from some great article or research I read, that succession has to happen in the business and it has to happen in ownership. It must happen in the family too.
Mhm.
And when a owning or a first generation can think about that, then it is actually a strategic decision that needs to be made and thought about. Who is going to be the future chief emotional officer around here?
Well, I mean, I'd actually argue your point is very, very valid, but I'd actually even argue that succession has to start in the family, because I don't really see how any of the other discussions can be had without that having taken place, or that being in process, or that conversation even being possible. So I was just trying to think through a scenario where the other two conversations could happen without you actually having that transition happening, maybe organically, less explicitly in the family. I just don't see it actually.
Without someone stepping into that chief emotional officer role, you can do it, but it is crazy hard.
Yeah.
It's crazy hard without that person there.